that God is going to speak to you today, but I'm so grateful to be here in this moment. Because 5 years ago, 2 months, y'all celebrated 5-year anniversary for Motivation Church 5 years ago. Pastor Travis and Brittany Jones had it on their heart, and they came from Cornerstone, and they stood in this moment, and they said, God, use us. And let me tell you about your pastor, something you may not realize. I've gotten to know Pastor Brittany and Pastor Travis, and even greater so in the last year. And I'm going to tell you something about your pastors. The same people you see on stage is the same people I see behind the scenes. They are authentic, true leaders. God is moving in them all the time, and they just let it happen. And they're so authentic, and they invite us in. And I listen to Pastor Brittany's words, and as she speaks around all over the country, and she writes and she invites people in. Pastor Travis right now speaking this morning in a church in Oklahoma, asking God to use him. They are true movers and shakers in the kingdom, and it's not just for this stage. Let me tell you, it's for real. So can you guys put your hands together and thank Pastor Brittany and Pastor Travis? What a blessing. Come on, you can do better than that. These guys are amazing. They're amazing. What an honor it is to be here this morning, to be with you. I believe that all of creation is God's. I believe that all of creation is God's. We just heard from Genesis to Revelation that all of creation is his, and everything, and he created all things, and he is in all things. By him, all things exist. But let me just tell you what God sent me here to talk about this morning. And that is this: to settle once and for all the issue of ownership. To settle the issue of ownership. And ask you this question on behalf of our Lord. Are you an owner or a steward today? Are you an owner or a steward? Pastor Travis, the last 2 weeks, if you haven't been here, let me catch you up. Okay, the last 2 weeks, Pastor Travis has been speaking to us from the Old Testament and talking about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of what? Wisdom. It's the beginning of wisdom. And if you grow with that reverence of God, then you understand things are being aligned in you as you align yourself under the Creator. Then we heard last week a story, Pastor brought us about a man named Abraham, who's the father of many nations. He really existed. He really had a child, and that child was a promise from God when they were like 100 years old, okay? God promised them. They had beyond, even back then, beyond medical possibility and biological possibility, God did a miracle, and they had a son. You heard last week how Abraham did the unthinkable. He offered up his son as a sacrifice, and I don't mean like baby dedication. I mean, he brought his baby, he brought his son, his promised child before God, put him on the altar with a knife. In the Old Testament, if you read the Bible, they would raise up an offering to Yahweh, and he brought his offering to God and said, Lord, you can have him. And he planned on giving him to God, and that meant his life. You think, what kind of crazy stuff is in the Bible? Are you kidding me? Let me tell you, he didn't die. He went on to live, but God in that moment settled for Abraham once and for all ownership that this promised child was not his, it was the Lord's. You stand up and do baby dedication, you know this is your child to steward. You are there to steward that. And that season, and they go by quick. Let me tell you, we have 3 boys. I've got my best friend in life with me. I married my best friend, Sue. Sue Wally. Now she's Sue Schlesman. 32 years ago, this Christmas will be 33 years that we've been married. We raised 3 kids, and they all love God, and somehow I'm not done yet. Okay, so don't count it out yet. But when you have those seasons, you're there to steward what God has given you. You're not there to take ownership of it and decide and make all the decisions. You're there to partner with God. Now, you say, I don't do that. That's okay. That's okay. Maybe that's not your perspective today. Say, I see it differently. That's okay. What I want to invite you to is a process and a journey today just to consider this issue. Are you an owner or are you a steward? Would you go with me on that journey? Yeah. So it starts in Genesis. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. God blessed them. So God says he created them, he created them, he created them. He gave them rule over all of creation. And then he blesses them and says to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Were Adam and Eve owners, or were they stewards of God's creation? God makes it clear all through Scripture that he is the creator. He owns all the things everywhere. But he invites those people, like he did from the time of creation began. He invites us, and still today, to come alongside and rule over his creation. Not as an owner, but as a steward. My dad had a 1966 Mustang convertible. Anybody know what I'm talking about? 1966 black Mustang convertible. And let me tell you, he restored every single part on that car. From the time I was about 14 to the time I was 16, I watched that man put care over every single part. He would find the parts in different places. We would go, we put them together, we put it all together, and we saw the finished product of a completely restored. I think it looked better than new. That thing was better than it came off the showroom floor because he took such great care of it. He parked that in the garage. And how many of you know if you have a car like that, a garage is not enough? You put the baby blankets over around it. You got the diapers, the old, you got the cloth, the soft ones, okay? The cloth, you don't use them anymore. Any car owners in here know what cloth diapers are for, okay? They're soft. When you open the door handle, you take that cloth diaper and you wipe it off when you close it, okay? I'm teaching you some things, okay? And then you cover that Mustang, you cover that prized possession up with a blanket over the entire car. I'm not talking about tarp, y'all. That's harsh. I'm talking about something you take care of. You put this careful blanket over the whole thing. Then you cover that so no dust gets in. Okay, I know you think it's crazy. But my dad took care of that car. And when I was 16, I dreamed, oh man, I cannot wait till I'm 16. Because what happens when you're 16, any teenagers in here, anybody young adults in here, remember, what happens when you're 16? You get to what? Drive. Thank you, Jesus. I got some freedom in my life. And I saw that 66 Mustang. I thought, oh man, I'm gonna get to drive that. And my dad said, are you insane? Are you insane? Do you think I'm gonna let you drive the 1966 Mustang in that garage? That thing, now I won't tell you what he said, but there might have been something about it, something about maybe that car being worth more than me or something like that. I'm just telling you, he was being real with me, okay? And here's what he was saying. You're not ready. I know you think that you could be in charge of this car. I know you think you can handle that V8 power in that Mustang. I know you think you can handle that, but you can't. You're not ready. More than that, you can't handle the responsibility. Sometimes we're crying out in life like, oh, give me more, give me more, give me more. And the Creator's like, you're not ready. You're not ready. But eventually, I turned 18 years old. I had a big date, not with my wife. I don't remember her name though. I don't remember anything about her. I promise, I swear. I don't remember anything, but I remember that car. Because let me tell you, I remember every detail about that. And I can promise you, I'm not even just saying that just because my wife's here. I really don't even remember who it was. I have no concept. I honestly, it's the truth. I don't have any idea who was with me because it didn't matter. Okay, now it was in the fall and it was cold. I grew up outside of Pennsylvania where it's cold in the fall. Okay, we don't do this faux fall like y'all do, okay? Where you think it's fall and you put the sweater on and then you walk outside and by the time you walk out of the office, it's like 65 degrees, like, oh my gosh. Okay, it's not fake fall, it's real fall and it gets cold like it is now, okay? Like we get it, you get fall for about a week around here, I think. So, it was cold, but how many know cool is way more important than cold? I put that top down. My dad said, you can take the car. You can take the car on your date. So I left early. I left the house early. I put the top down. I was cruising. Y'all don't know about cruising. Okay, in Pennsylvania, and back in the day, we were cruising. I even did articles in car magazines about P-Town, they called it, and the crew. You can look it up online. It's true. And all the cruising, we would cruise to one parking lot on Broad Street, and then we cruise to another parking lot, and then we turn down Main, then we come back to Broad, and we cruise. And one of the parking lot stops, I remember the first time somebody asked me, he said, "You get a new car?" I went, yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's pretty, you're kidding me. Are you kidding? You know, I'm not kidding. It's my car. And then I get in and drive before they think about it too much, you know. And I cruised down next spot. People kept asking me. By the time I picked that girl up, I don't remember her name, don't remember who it was. Okay, by the time I showed up at her house, she said, whoa, whoa, you got a new car? And I was like, yep. Man, I own that. I drove that thing around that night, and she was like, put the top up. I'm like, shh. You don't put the top up on a 66 Mustang convertible. Are you crazy? Should I take you home? Okay. I mean, we rode that. We owned it, y'all. We owned it. Drove that home car, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, boy, if he's telling this story, something bad had to happen. I took care of that car. I don't even think I drove it. I didn't drive at 56 miles, and I drove a 55, stay alive, okay? And I took that car home, and I put the blanket on. I took the thing, I covered it. I wiped down everything. Everything I touched, I wiped down. Everything she touched down, I cleaned. Everything, anything, every single thing, I cleaned it all like it was COVID, before there was COVID, okay? I cleaned that car, and then I put the baby diaper, wiped down that door as I closed that door, click. Yeah, and then put the cover on it, and then I put the outer cover on it, and then as I'm walking away, how many of y'all know that when you didn't have a car back in the day, you had a 10-speed? Y'all don't know anything about that, okay? When you got around, kids, you actually had to go on a bicycle, okay? And you rode a bike when you didn't own a car. So I had a 10-speed lean-in that I had pulled down when I moved the car out for some reason, and when I walked past it, I bumped it and it fell against the car. Now the cover was on. So I thought, just keep walking. It's gonna be okay, just keep walking. And then I thought, well, I better put that bike back. So I put that bike, and I didn't put it back by the car, y'all. I put it away from the car because get rid of the evidence, okay? I got rid of that bike. I wanted to throw it away, but I didn't throw it away because I needed it. But I put it away, and then my dad gets up early in the morning. When about time I'm going to bed, he gets up, okay? And I remember that morning because my ownership was tested and proven not. true. Because there was a scratch on that car. And there was a deep scratch on that car. And my dad took the cover off to check that car. And when he did, he came and woke me up. And I won't tell you what happened next because there's video cameras and stuff happening and they still got laws in this country and I still love my dad and I'm going to see him later to watch a game. So I'm going to do right by him, okay? I'm not going to, how many, you don't tell all your parents everything, okay? And so I'm not going to tell you about the conversation, but let me just say I was reminded that I was not the owner. Some of us drive through life like we own it all. And culture teaches you can't wait to be an owner. You can't wait to own it because your parents don't have to, can't tell you what to do. I'm a college student, can't tell me what to do. I own all this. I own everything. I get to own it. I own my business. These are my kids. This is my house. And culture tricks us into thinking as if God isn't here. And the same thing happened. And let us learn from what happened from the beginning. 2 simple lessons today about ownership versus stewardship. And the first lesson is this, that owners divide. Owners divide, but stewards multiply. See, owners say, this is mine. And God, I'll give to you what is yours. God, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of this. But God, you gave this as a gift to me. Now this makes sense, right? Go with me on this because we all do this. God gave me the gift of life. We just sang about it. God gave me this gift of life to live however I want. And if you are an owner, you understand that this is your life, your choices, your decisions. And in the garden, the same thing happened. But God said to subdue and care for the whole garden except for one place, except for one thing. He said, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, I don't need you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to care for that. You care for everything else in the garden. You care for every fish, every animal, every bird, every part of creation. You care for all of it. And then there was this distance that happened between Adam and Eve, if you listen to the story, and then between God and Adam. And this distance that was created, and I think it was first, because they don't say it, but I think it was first happening in Adam, and there's proof for that, but we don't need to talk about that today. And then it was happening in Eve, and then she goes and sees the tree, and then she's reminded, hey, my life, my choices, my decisions, and why, God, why are you hiding that from us? And that distance created a divide between God and his creation. And the created became distance from the creator. So the more distance you get, the more it seems like it's all yours and all your decision. And then what happens is they move outside of what God wanted. What did God want? Well, he didn't want them to be owners. He told them that to subdue it. That word subdue has this idea that I would protect, I would keep it, I would protect it, I'll even cultivate it, even to the point of maximizing to its fullest potential. I think that goes really well with the way Tony Evans defined it in his book, Kingdom Stewardship. He defines stewardship this way: as protecting and expanding the assets of another. This is what God designed for us. He designed for you to protect the assets that he gave to you, but he didn't give those things to you so that you could own them. He gave them to you so you could subdue them, you could keep them, you could protect them, even maximize them, even invest in them. How many people understand what ownership? You understand ownership? How many people own a home? Raise your hand. How many people own a home? Okay, let me rephrase that. How many people have a bank that owns your home? Okay, you guys understand this then. You know what? The bank never comes to my house. Bank don't come to my house and check on how I'm taking care of it. It's their investment, but they say, you can run it down all you want. My wife wishes they would come and set me straight maybe, get me to invest in some things, but she takes care of it. My wife is an amazing decorator. I mean, you should see our house. It's beautiful. I wish I had pictures. It's beautiful. It should be like in a magazine or something. She just decorates, cares for it, takes care of it. And the bank, if they met my wife, would say, thank you. Because you are pouring investment and making that investment that the bank partnered with you worth more than when they partnered with you. And we don't just need inflation, we need investment. And how many of you learned this about your life? You can make it more or you can make it less, depending on what you decide. It's your choice. God doesn't force himself on you. You say, I don't even believe in God. You know what? God's okay with that. What do you mean he's okay with it? I mean, God created you and he gives you a choice. You don't have to believe like I believe. There's all kinds of faiths and all kinds of ways to believe, but you don't have to believe God's saying, you don't have to do anything. You can do what you want. But if you become an owner and that distance that divides, the further you get from the creator, the less you will see what God originally designed and intended for your life because he wanted to bless you. The point of you believing in God isn't to get something, but it is to walk in his blessing. He said, bless and multiply. But see, owners divide. Owners go, we just talked about it in what your grandparents taught you, right? So you give the first fruits. That's God's. You give to God what is God's, right? You give that first fruits. The problem isn't that though. The problem is what we think of for the 90%. And I don't really care what percentage you give. And God doesn't need your money. And you ever wonder that? Like, why does God need so much money all the time? Why are pastors asking so much money all the time? Church is asking for money. Why? Like he needs our money. God doesn't need your money. He doesn't. He created all things. I'm pretty sure he's got it. I'm pretty sure he's covered. So why then? Because every time it's an exercise of this principle of ownership versus stewardship. Every time I give, I'll decide, am I an owner or am I a steward? Here's what owners do. Owners say, God's 10%, my 90% to make whatever decisions I want to. That's if you're a really, really gracious and generous owner. Because, you're a churchgoer. You give to, that's great. You know what? God didn't need any of that. God wanted you and knew this about us, that we would always be being raised up to be owners. And he wanted us to experience the blessing of being a steward, of saying, it's all God's, 100% of it, God, it's all yours. I'm just exercising faithfulness to come and give you this 10%. Lord, I want to bring an offering. Right now, the church is taking up a kingdom offering, kingdom builders, and they're building kingdom. They're asking people to give beyond what they normally give. Well, it's like, here's how owners think. They're trying to get more of my money. They're trying to get more of my money. We already gave you the tithe. Now you want on top of that. Now you want more than that. Where does it stop, Pastor? Pastor's not in charge of where it stops. But neither are you. Unless you're an owner. If you're an owner, you divide. Stewards multiply. But then, when that distance was created, now God steps in that moment, in that horrific moment. And we see that the distance created divide, and that brought some destruction. And then in the New Testament, we learn, secondly, that owners not only divide and stewards multiply, but owners hide and stewards abide. John 15, I am the true vine and the Father is the gardener, he says. And he starts right away with a hard truth. In verse 2, he says, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Wait a minute, Jesus, are we supposed to be the branches here? What's going on? Oh, no. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, he cuts, he shapes, so that it will be even more fruitful. And he teaches us right away something that owners quickly hide from, and that is anything that's painful. Anything that's painful is not God's blessing. Come on, God wouldn't want that. God only wants what's good for me, what's best for me, what's good for me. What's good for you, if you've ever been a parent, and what's best for you are completely different things. If you want to decide what's good for you, go ahead. Let your kids decide what they eat. Check that out. See how that works out for you. Okay? Let them decide what they do with their time. All of it. It's all theirs. Let them decide. Let them choose. Listen, we would be horrible parents, and eventually some authorities, even in this world, would be called because we let them do anything they want to do. What kind of father do you think God is? He just give you ownership and walk away? What kind of parent would that be? No, he wanted to bless you. He wanted to come alongside you, and sometimes his blessing doesn't look up and to the right. We think, oh, God's blessing me. It's up and to the right. It's growing. We're growing. Oh, God's blessing me. God's blessing me. Hashtag I'm so blessed. I'll take a picture in front of my 66 Mustang. Look at me, how blessed I am. Look at what I have. Yeah. Everything, we get it, and there's nothing wrong with it. We just get that part. That part makes complete sense to us. It's the part where something's taken away. No, God. Because owners think what's fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. I serve you, I've come, I've given, I've done all these things. God, why would you take anything away from me? God, why would you bring pain into my life? That doesn't make any sense. God, I've done all these things. I mean, it may be for those heathens out there. Maybe those people who aren't following you, maybe they need some pain to be reminded who you are, but I know who you are. Well, if you really knew who he was, you would know that everything works together for the good of those who love him, and maybe he wants to bring some pain with some purpose, because when you're a steward, your pain has purpose. That's good. When you're an owner, your pain is a sign that God's not blessing me. It's a picture. You want to test this out? You know how your kids beg you for one of these, right? They beg you from the time they're like elementary. I don't know. I've been hearing stories of like third graders begging their parents, and I don't know how but I remember when my kids were like, they hit 10 and they're like, oh, they need it because of practice, Mom, because of practice. You're picking me up from practice. I need to call. You need to make a call. You don't need to get on the internet while I'm coming to pick you up. Well, yeah. But then I need it for school. I need it for this. And they convince us, they wear us down. And then we go ahead and do it. We give them the phone. But go ahead and test this. Try to take that phone back. Whose phone is that? What will they tell you? That's my phone. Those are my things. Well, do you pay for the plan on that phone? Does that address come to your house or my house? I don't remember. What is it again? They beg you for the car. They beg you for the car. Listen, teenagers, I'm not harping on you. I'm telling you that's normal. You're a normal person. And you know what? Us parents, we're no better. We want more. Why do we got to change a house? Why do we got to change a car? Why do we change all? Because we need it. We need more. We need more. We need more. And so we come to God and say, God, it's ours. I'm investing in this. Yes, I'm going to benefit from the investment. Yes, I'll give some to church. Because owners divide. And God wanted to bless us and multiply. He wanted us to abide. Verse 4, abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. That word abide is actually an interesting word in Greek. It doesn't mean just to be in the same place. It actually has this idea of a sojourn. Not just to be in the same place, that I'm with God, but I'm walking with him, that I'm abiding in him, that I'm sojourning. I'm on the journey. We're so focused on destination. Where are you going to go when you die? I'm going to go to heaven. Destination. And Jesus is all about the journey. He's all about the walk. He's all about the moment he wants to spend with you. Let me tell you, when you're an owner, you miss that. The parable of the talents. What was the lesson for? What did the one person do that God condemned? He took what God gave him and he hid it. He took what he gave him and he hid it. The other two experienced double kingdom impact, right? What happened to the person that all of their talents, all of what God gave them, 2.5 years of a salary, he invested in them in a talent and said this master who went away, he gave it to him, but he gave it to him to rule over and invest. And then the ones who did, who multiplied it, he said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Now we go, ooh, he gave and then they got more. So if you give your offering today, well, then God's going to give you more because owners hear formula. But you know what stewards hear? Faithfulness. He was faithful with what he gave you. Stop worrying about what you don't have. What are you doing with what God gave you? How are you investing that? And how are you leveraging that to build the kingdom? I don't mean yours. I mean there is one king in the kingdom of heaven. He is Jesus. He is the creator. He is the author. He is the finisher of our faith. And whether you acknowledge him or not, he gives you that option. You might be watching online. You say, I don't even believe any of this stuff. God's like, okay, that's totally okay. That's your choice. But it's amazing how the enemy uses decisions to divide us. Oh, it's my life, it's my choice, it's my everything. It's my business, it's my car, it's my phone. It's my time. Wow. Are you an owner or a steward? So it's time to settle it. It's time to settle it once and for all. To settle the issue of ownership. I'm going to invite our band to come and join me. I want to create a moment for you to have decision. And you can do what you want with that decision. You can do anything you want. Paul said, hey, all of God, he created all things. But what did you have? What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast? Why do you act like as though you've not received it? Can we settle once and for all the issue of ownership? And say, God, it's all yours. My time, my life, what you want to do. Say, I don't want to do that. I don't believe that. Or this is my life. Well, that's okay. And most people would say, well, how's that working out for you? Except that creates owners. Because then they come in thinking, oh, well, I've tried this and it didn't work. Let me try the God thing. See if that works. You don't try the God thing. You come because God gave you the ability to come. and you say, God, it's all yours. I'm gonna give you my life today. I'm gonna call you my king today. I'm gonna walk in your kingdom. I'm not gonna be about what I want and what I do, but Lord, help me that I would not decide and cause division, but instead I would step into, instead of dividing, I would begin to multiply what you give me. So God, it's all yours. I wanna give you my life today. I wanna give you, we come to church and we give him our worship. I wanna give you my worship, but I wonder if we could do it differently today. I wonder if we could give him his praise rather than our praise. I wonder if we could give him his worship, what he deserves, because he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he doesn't just deserve it, it's because he gave you that breath that you're breathing right now, and you acknowledge that he gave it to you by coming and saying, God, I will praise you with my life and with my words. Let this be a moment to be multiplied in my life tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day until I build only your kingdom in my life, and let nothing that my hand touches ever build anything for me. I am no longer an owner. I am your steward to use however you want to use. And let's settle this. Would you stand with me? Let's settle this. Right now, I just want to open this front of the room up as a symbol, as an altar, like Abraham who put his son, his promise on that altar, that you would say, God, I trust you with my life. I'm putting my life on the altar and I'm coming to give you praise. And if that's your heart and you want to step out to show a symbol of that, then walk forward. Come forward and do this. If you say, I could never do that, I could never do that, God's okay with that, but he's wanting you to experience his blessing as a steward today. So whatever that is, or however you want to do it, would you walk forward and say, God, or would you stand in your pew and raise your hand, or would you get on your knees? Would you stay in a moment and say, God, this is your life, and so this is your praise. I will praise you.